France 24's Luc Schrago is at the Élysée Presidential Palace where that meeting's taking place. Luc, what more did President Macron have to say going into the talks today?
Well, as you've just heard, what he was saying is that there are sacrifices going to have to be made moving ahead. What he called for after the end of a carefree time, the end of not worrying, that we needed now ambition with the government and unity, in fact. Look, at this point, we've got 6 months of the war carrying on in Ukraine, where we've had these huge concerns. We've seen the entire order in Europe upended, and that's been hitting France as well as everywhere else. Energy prices in particular now spiralling, promising something that's going to be a particularly difficult winter. Now, they've been calling for what they've referred to as energy sobriety, using less to try and get through what is promising to be this difficult winter, with sacrifices going to have to be made. Now, we've seen him say in recent days that values and freedoms to defend them, there's going to have to be belt tightening. It comes on top of almost rampant inflation, really affecting the price of purchasing. The government not just attempting to address the energy situation, but purchasing power as well. And it's all adding to this extremely large pile of work in the government inbox to do. Elsewhere, it needs to tackle the climate crisis. We've seen over the summer massive amounts of wildfires, a historic drought, and even incredibly major storms. Now, the Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne has said that this is all part of the climate crisis and it can no longer be ignored. They're expected to reveal measures aimed at dealing with this in the days and weeks ahead. Also, on top of a bill to push forward and accelerate renewable energies, the idea there to push forward green energy without raising prices as they have been already. Pensions and employment benefits as well, that's something that the government's going to have to do. And on top of everything else, it's going to be looking at a severe amount of opposition coming from the opposition parties.
Right. Luc, this is a very packed agenda, as you were just telling us. How hard is it going to be for the French president to try and get done what he needs to get done?
Well, it's not easy for Emmanuel Macron. His government doesn't have a majority in Parliament anymore, and the watchword that has been used is compromise. Now, that's going to be a lot harder than it was in 2017. The Parliament is due to be back in October. Now, that's 1 month later than it ordinarily would be, and the hope is that will give politicians time to find agreement, to find compromise. But it shows to what extent that the government is expecting some serious opposition to its agenda. The budget for 2023, that will be under discussion as well, and it's almost 100% likely that there's going to be a lot of trouble there. Opposition parties generally do not vote for it on principle. We might see the use of a constitutional article to try and push that through, and that means that it's highly likely to see a lot of protests in the street. Now, we've seen 2022 marked by these major international crises so far. Emmanuel Macron sort of moving from one to another, trying to cope. We haven't really heard much of what's been called his 5-year plan. We haven't got much vision on what the government wants to handle for the future. Now, if the government's going to address them, it needs to prove to the French people that first of all, it can handle these crises, and that secondly, the solutions it comes up with are going to be palatable to the French people.
All right, Luc, thanks for that. That's France 24's Luc Schrago.